Is there a supplementary question? Honorable Meshoe, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, Honorable President, for your reply. The ACDP is concerned that a decision has been made to establish what appears to be a duplicate parallel structure that might also fail to fulfill its mandate, just like the rapid deployment capacity of the African Standby Force did. We wonder whether the causes for the failure of the African Standby Force have been sufficiently addressed to ensure that they are not repeated. We are also concerned that the AU budget, as has been reported, will not be used to fund the deployment of this rapid reaction force, and that instead, individual countries supplying troops and equipment would be responsible for paying for the deployment. What I want to know from the Honorable President is how many countries have made a commitment to supply troops and equipment whenever there is a need, because we know that many regional countries are poor and they will not afford the heavy price tag of such deployments. I also want to know what the Honorable President intends doing to ensure that the deployment of this military rapid reaction force does not become a financial burden to the South African taxpayers. Thank you.
The Honorable President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The discussions that has been taking place in the AU for a number of years now was the need to establish the standby force. And I think at some point a decision was taken that we must start with regions. So many regions have been establishing their standby force. I think it's at the level of a brigade. Even SADC has been working on that. Now, this is a follow-up to the need, as you know, that Africa has these challenges. We need to have a standby force. But I'm saying for a number of years now. Now, the reality is that problems have been occurring in the continent, which needed military intervention. Whilst this debate was going on, whilst there was an establishment of these, for an example, regional standby force as a process that will, in a sense, develop to a particular level. African countries are saying, whilst we are discussing this matter, whilst we are trying to find ways and means of dealing with it, but there are problems. As you know, for an example, the recent ones, the DRC, the Mali, the Central African Republic, etc., whilst the matter is being debated, the Somalia issue has been a problem for many years whilst this matter was being discussed. So whatever discussion we're having at a level of this African standby force was not helping to deal with the concrete reality where the challenges were. The last summit, being aware of that process being going on, in fact, just before the summit, Chief of the Armies as well as the Minister of Defense met in Addis Ababa as part of the preparation to present a paper that was supposed to be adopted. That paper, they felt not good. So they must go back and work on it. And this is about a few weeks before the summit, which meant the summit was not going to be able to address this issue to take a decision. Now, the problem is, what do you do in the meantime? Because problems are there. In fact, as we arrived in Addis Ababa, in addition to Mali, Niger was attacked. Its most important and sensitive installation. And we are still discussing the matter We're not taking a decision as a reality. I'm leaving aside the other things of why these countries are being destabilized, the manner in which they have been. So the question that confronted the African Union was, what do we do? Whilst we're sitting there, we couldn't take a decision, for an example, to send a standby force in Niger. We couldn't. Meshoe theoretically would want to do so. In Mali, ECOWAS, to which Mali is a member, when it was being attacked, ECOWAS met 10 times trying to say, what do we do? Precisely because there is no capacity of this nature of rapid response. They were not able to do anything. In 10 meetings, they couldn't produce a single soldier to go there and deal with the situation. That's a reality. Until the former colonial country, France, came in to save the government. Question that African leaders were asking themselves: until when shall we be standing and looking when Africa is being destabilized? Some of the leaders were saying, you know, the process of colonization of Africa was that we were attacked from all over, bit by bit, and got colonized. You could be faced with the same thing to undermine Africa now. Should we stand until we all disappear? Now, these were the questions that face leaders. And leaders then said, whilst people are working on the ideal kind of standby force for Africa, let us have something that we can deal with. I must also mention one point, that the resources of the continent so far are paid by other people, taxpayers, Europe, not by Africans. And they've got a nice name they're called, I don't know, I can't remember the name, Friends something, who give donation to the continent. They put conditions. If we want to use their money, they want to know what for. And if they don't like what we are using it for, they say, sorry, we can't use it here. So Africa remains helpless. In fact, Libya is one case in point. Part of the reason the AU could not go, because the donor said, don't use our money there, because they wanted to give themselves a time to bomb Libya out of existence. The issue that has been raised by the leaders, until when? And we cannot also depend on other monies. And therefore, a number of countries, when the call was made by the AU Commission that we need something so that we can defend ourselves, we need volunteers. Many countries volunteered to say, we are volunteering. In other words, countries that are not going to depend on the donor money, that if there was a problem, they will be able to move swiftly and finance their action. Because if we don't do so, it will be financed by the taxpayers from across the seas. And they will control us forever. Do we want to continue being controlled by other people? Or do we want to be independent and stand on our own? And these are countries that said, we can participate as a joint force. Not everybody. To move away from the debate that has been debated for years, to deal with concrete things, what can we do? So there are a number of countries that have said we are ready to come together and put our efforts together so that whenever there is a problem in this continent, we move. Partly because there is a suspicion that there is an agenda of using soldiers in many respects. In the past, there used to be coup d'etats conducted by soldiers. African Union took a position, this is not allowed. Unconstitutional changes cannot be allowed. They've changed. What used to be called mutiny is no longer mutiny. They say we are dissatisfied, they call themselves rebels, and those rebels become
Thank you very much,
effective.
Honorable President. We've got a number of other supplementary questions. with your permission, I'd really love to move on.